and our live stream on Facebook and YouTube. Today, before we begin, let me just tell you, next week's speaker is Taylor Brock from Meals on Wheels, and she'll be talking about senior hunger and isolation. And I want to remind everyone what we're doing here, what the Koinonia process is. And Vern today, if you were at the 9 o'clock, really spoke to that, is to take Sunday into Monday and to be like God. And today we have a speaker who walks the talk. And she'll tell you a little about her story. We're called to be the good in the world, and we're called to be the good in our community. And we hope from these presentations that we will learn about all these organizations and nonprofits, and we'll be able to go out and support in some way, some or many or one. Let us pray as I read the collect for Koinonia. God of all creation, fill us with a passion for justice and dignity for each neighbor in our community. Guide and support us through Koinonia to follow your example and your command, to do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with you. Transform us through your Spirit to become conduits of your love and compassion in all that we do, so we become reconciled to you and your creation. In the name of the triune God, amen. Today's speaker is Sarah Leonard, a friend of mine I worked with at Mount Pleasant High School. She and her husband Derek have been foster parents for over 7 years. Sarah is a special education teacher with Cabarrus County Schools and is a volunteer speaker for foster care. The Leonards have 4 biological children, from college down to freshmen in high school. Can't believe that. 1 adopted child and 1 current foster child. Yes, 6 children at home, and she's one busy mom. Sarah will be speaking about the challenges and needs of foster care in Cabarrus County. Please join me in welcoming Sarah Leonard.
Okay. All right. Everybody can hear me? All right. Well, I am Sarah Leonard. Thank you for having me. Thank you for your concern and curiosity about foster care in Cabarrus County. So I had a PowerPoint, but it didn't quite make it here, and that's okay. I'm going to use my phone. The PowerPoint is nothing too spectacular. It's really just to keep me on track, because I can get off task easy, and I could talk about this for hours. So I'll just read from my notes to try to keep me on task. But like she said, we have been foster parents with Cabarrus County since, it will be 8 years in October. So we have 4 biological children. We love babies. We just always thought that we would adopt or something. That was just always a calling we had. And it really just started with it was that calling, and it was never the right time. Everybody says that to me. Well, I'm gonna wait till my kids get older, or I can help when this happens, or whatever. There's really not a perfect time to jump in. So it just and it's like that with a lot of things in life. Like if you're called to it, you're called to it, and you just do it when you're called. So it just so happened that one spring we decided that none of our kids were gonna play a spring sport. We were just tired. We were tired from football and then right into basketball season, and our youngest she was 7 then, so she was in 2nd grade, and we said we're just not going to play a spring sport. Well, as soon as we made that decision, sorry, I left my here, okay. As soon as we made that decision, I saw advertised that there was going to be a class to take to become foster parents in Cabarrus County. So the Lord opened that door for us. We had nothing on our schedule that whole spring. It was a 12-week class that we went to every Tuesday night or whatever, and that's how we became foster parents in Cabarrus County. So our plan was that we'll just get us this little baby, and we'll just take care of this little baby until its mama gets better, and then we'll just help restore a family. That was our plan. Well, God's plan was completely different. So I clearly told our social worker, like, we don't want a kid over 2 years old. Like, you know, it's kind of like we want a baby, you know, like we got enough big kids. And so what we got was a very active 2-year-old who is now our very active 9-year-old son. So we joke and say, and now we're in the middle of this 3rd grade project of learning about Neil Armstrong, and when I'm sitting there reading with him at night, I'm like, oh, Lord, this is what I didn't want to do again. Like, I did not want to do this again, but here we are doing it. So I'm going to share with you just some things about Cabarrus County DSS foster care. So we are licensed through Cabarrus County DSS, but you can be licensed to be a foster parent through different organizations and still help Cabarrus County DSS. We have several friends and know of different people that are licensed through North Carolina Baptist Association has our Baptist Children's Home. There's a couple private organizations in Charlotte. There's one in Concord that serves specifically more children with mental health issues. So there are lots of organizations. This is just what I know from DSS. So currently at DSS, we have 37 licensed foster homes in Cabarrus County. On a given month, we have 165 kids in care. So think about those numbers. There's no way that Cabarrus County parents alone, foster parents alone, can serve those number of kids. So just as an example, our current foster baby, who really will be 3 in July, but we still call her the baby, she has 2 siblings that fortunately are placed in Cabarrus County, but that family is licensed through an agency in Charlotte. So it's just fortunate that they ended up in Cabarrus County, so we do get to see each other and that kind of thing. But it's very often that that same foster family, because they're licensed privately, not through DSS, currently has 2 other kids from Burke County. So that just shows the need in general for homes. There's not enough foster homes to go around. We have, you know, our story is a little bit different than what you see and hear from different people or what's maybe on television or whatever. But, you know, we've had only long-term placements. So we've only had 3 placements. One of them is our son, and one of them might become our daughter. But we had another placement that we reunified with a family member a couple years ago, but we had her for 15 months. So you never know, you know, DSS will certainly tell you what you want to hear, like, oh, this kid's only going to be here for 3 to 6 months. Well, that's not normally the case. So, you know, and you don't know going into it what's going to happen with the case. So, I know Karen had said you were looking, you know, people were concerned about or curious about ways to help. Well, in Cabarrus County, the first obvious way is more foster homes. We just need more licensed people. And I will say that I think that the number of homes we have right now, I mean, this is pretty average. 37 is kind of the way it's been, which is since we've been doing this. I mean, it goes between 30 and 40, but I don't remember it ever being over 40 open homes. And a lot of us, and just because we're counted in that 37, but we can't take another kid right now. It just depends on, the state only allows you 5 kids in your home. So, you know, you can birth as many as you want, but if you have children in the home, the state of North Carolina only allows 5 children in the home. So technically we have a bed open right now because 2 of my boys are over 18, so they're adults. One of those lives at home, one's away at college, but there's no space in my home for another body. But so when you think about that, so I think that Stephanie, our licensing worker, told me out of those 37 right now, she can really only place in about 28 of the homes. So everyone else is maxed. And even if you're not maxed, you might be maxed like we are. Like there's no way we could take on another child at this point. So the first obvious thing we need is just more homes. And then speaking on that, we have a huge need right now for people who would just be licensed to be emergency or respite placements. Like, for example, 2 weekends ago, we have a foster mom who's single foster mom. She got into this to just do respite. She was just going to help other foster families. Well, I want to say she's 26. I may be wrong. She has adopted 3 kids now, and has a 4th baby that she very well may be adopting. But she still takes emergency calls because she still has a bed open. So 2 weeks ago on a Friday, there was a little girl in Cabarrus County that nobody picked her up from school. Nobody picked her up from school. So the school called and couldn't get anybody to answer. So they called the sheriff's department, had them go do a welfare check, and found both caretakers overdosed on heroin. So they had to, give the caretakers Narcan and blah, blah, blah. So, but from that, those caretakers were not able to name anybody in the family or any friends or anybody that could take this child. So the child went straight to, fortunately, she went straight to Megan's house, who's a fabulous foster mom. But still, can you imagine getting dropped off at school on Friday and then your life completely changes? The next day you're in foster care. Well, Megan can't keep her because she already has 4 little kids at home. So she is now moved to a different foster home. So now this poor child has been moved twice in the last 2 weeks, and she's with another good friend of mine now, and it's good, but it's still not her home, And there's just so much trauma these kids come into care with, and the family that took her already has 4 kids, 3 of those are adopted. So it's just, we really need more homes. We need more homes, period. Even if if someone could get licensed just to do emergency placements, to just say, you can call me at 10 p.m. and I'll take this kid for the weekend until you find somewhere else to place them. Just to do respite. We're allowed, as foster parents, which I think is kind of a strange term, but 1 respite weekend a month. I think I've used true respite, like relying on another foster parent, twice in 7 years. I don't feel right about asking somebody else who's already got their hands full to help us. I don't like leaving my kids with strangers when they've already been through a lot. So anyways, but there are a lot of times that things happen, like you have a death in the family and you have to go out of town. Well, you can't just leave your foster kid with anybody. There's rules. So just if somebody was licensed to just take respite, like, hey, I can keep your kid for the weekend or something like that. We also have a problem now with daycare closures. I know y'all are aware because of COVID, daycares are closing down. And I think it's getting better, but this winter it was really bad. And we're fortunate that my husband's been working from home for 2 years because of COVID, so our baby stays home with him. But we have probably 2 or 3 a week post in our private Facebook group for DSS foster parents saying, hey, I just found out our daycare's closed tomorrow. Can anybody watch so-and-so? Hey, I just found out the daycare's closed the rest of the week. Hey, my kid's room's closed. Can anybody watch? And these foster parents are having to take off work to stay home because the daycare's closed. So if there was somebody, and we just don't have any open homes, or we have a few stay-at-home moms that can sometimes help, but sometimes they're maxed too. So if there was just somebody that could say, hey, if your daycare closes, give me a call, something like that. So those are definite needs. Other ways you can help are meals. Like, I would love like a big dream would be like to have churches partner with us and say, hey, we'd like to adopt 4 of your foster families and build relationships with them. And maybe you provide them a meal once a month. Maybe you send them a card in the mail with a gift card to Domino's to order pizza one night. Maybe, you pick up some Happy Meal cards and send them in the mail for the kids. You celebrate their kids' birthdays, things like that, where we're very fortunate. My husband and I are local. We have an enormous family. We have lots of help. We're very, very blessed. But a lot of our foster parents don't have that. They don't have family in town. They don't have, we have lots of single mama foster families right now. If I had to guess, I would say 8 or 10 of our current foster families are single mamas. And they're working full-time jobs, and they've got 3 or 4 kids that are in foster care, and there's appointments, and there's visits, and there's therapies, and there's all these things they've got to get these kids to, and then they still have to cook dinner and do homework and all the things you do with kids. So, there is an organization at Providence Baptist in Harrisburg. It's called Overflow 419. They are a great ministry to Cabarrus County foster parents. I got a card in the mail a couple weeks ago from them that had a gift card to Domino's and a gift card to Dunkin' Donuts, and she said, I know you've had a couple trying weeks, dinner on us, breakfast on us, just that means the world, So something like that you could do that would be, it's not that big a deal for parents for adults to pick up a card and stick it in the mail, but for on the receiving end of that, that is huge. Okay, let's see, what are my other ones? Also, like gift cards for when kids come into placement. So kids come with sometimes nothing, literally. Our son came with a pair of shoes that I couldn't put on his feet. They were way too small. There's no way those shoes were supposed to be on his feet. Clothes that were way too big. No winter coat. We got him in November, and it was one of those weekends that it was like freezing. Like I had to get up the next morning, and my mom came to my house and watched him because I didn't have clothes to take him out in. The night we got him, I had to go to Target and get diapers and a set of pajamas. The next morning, my mom came to my house, and I went to the store to get things. So, you know, like it's so we do have, there was a teacher I used to work with a long time ago that teaches at Cannon School now, and she has a civic group, and those kids raised money and bought gift cards to Target last year. So we had that for a while, that anytime we knew of a new placement, I could run to their house and, you know, give them $50 and Target gift card and said, run, go get what you need, something like that. So, because they very rarely come with things. And if they do come with things, they're not things that you want them wearing all the time. You know, it's really hard when you get a kid with nothing. Our baby we have now, I brought her home from Levine's. She was 11 months old, but she was very, 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 very sick. And so I brought her home from the hospital, and the car seat that was left from her family, I wouldn't bring into my house. Like, I told DSS, if you want to give it back to them, you can come get it. It's in my garage. I brought it home from the hospital, but I'm not bringing it in my house. It was that bad. Another thing is, I like a parents' night out. Like maybe you could host something here, you know, just every couple months. Refuge Church does one for us, and Providence Baptist does one every once in a while. But a parents' night out where you just say, hey, you want to drop the kids off here? You can run and go get dinner. That's huge because, like I said, we're fortunate because we have family, but a lot of these people don't have family around, and they literally don't get away from the kids. Cards, notes, encouragement, prayer. We can use prayer every day. These kids have so much involved, you know, and then it pours into the whole family, like the stress and the trauma. There's court dates, there's therapies, there's all those things, and visit days. Visit days are really hard. So if the child's goal is reunification, then they get a visit with their biological parent. It's usually once a week. It's usually supervised at DSS. But coming off of that, our baby's sisters were getting 8 hours once a week unsupervised with their dad. And coming off of that, the next day, their foster mom was like, I don't even know how much longer I can do this because there's a different set of rules with him. And then they come back and then they want to be with him. And there's just a lot. And they're little and they don't understand. And it's just a lot. So, you know, just prayers, but if somebody would have, you know, drop off a meal that night to her or something, say, hey, I know you got visit on Tuesday. I'm gonna bring the kids some Happy Meals so you don't have to worry about it when you get home or whatever. And then something else, I asked our foster group, we have a closed Facebook group of foster parents where we feed ideas off each other, we support each other. Yesterday somebody posted and said, I got a kid last night, does anybody having 6X pants? This child has nothing to wear to school on Monday. So, you know, we rallied the troops pretty good. When we took our baby, we had no baby anything, nothing. And when I got home from the hospital from picking her up, there was a crib in my garage, there was a stroller in my garage, there were bottles, there were diapers, and that was just from our group of foster parents saying, hey, anybody got a crib they're not using? Anybody got this they're not using? You know, whatever. And we rally and support each other, but to have outside support is phenomenal. It means the world to us. One of the other foster parents mentioned this, and I guess I've never thought of this, but they said sponsorship, like for athletics or to summer camp or something like that. If you're financially able to say, hey, is there a kid in foster care who would like to go to camp? You know, a camp that costs $700 is a real setback. You know, there's this big myth around foster parents getting paid. It's a state rate. It's fabulous. It's $475 a month. So after you buy diapers and the things your baby needs and pay for your child to go to, you know, go do things and put gas in your car for all these therapies, it's really not that much. If you divide that by 24 hours a day, it comes up to some pennies. So, you know, and the state just went up on their rate and they acted like it was fabulous. They haven't gone up on it in 18 years and they went up like $25. So, but of course it was spread to the news that foster parents were going to be getting more money. So, yeah, it's quite humorous. So if you were financially able to say, hey, I'd like to send a kid to camp, or is there a kid that wants to play t-ball this spring or whatever, and if you have 2 or 3 kids in foster care in your home and they want to play t-ball, and it's $130 to sign them up for t-ball, and then everybody has to have cleats, and everybody has to have shoes, and everybody else has to have bats, and that stuff adds up. So something like that, we've never been in that situation where that was a huge hardship on us, but there are, especially for these single mamas, these single foster mamas, that they're scrounging for things. So that would be a huge blessing. So those are the kind of things that ideas about how to help support Cabarrus County DSS foster families. There's, I'm sure, other ones, but those are ways that, could literally take the load off for foster parents. So, does anybody have questions? Yeah, okay.
So, understand the need for licensed parents to provide, understand the need for licensed parents to provide emergency or respite care. So what would you say the potential need is for foster care parents long-term? That is, so did I understand you to say there are 37, which is about average, and there are how many kids?
Currently 165, and they said that's about an average number.
So divide 165 by 37.
Right. It doesn't quite work out. So that means that they're having to call in private agency. So what happens is when Cabarrus County takes a kid, so just for instance, this little girl the other week that didn't have anywhere to go home to. So our Cabarrus County's workers actually they didn't call, they sent an email. I mean, they were that desperate. They sent an email late on Friday night and said, well, hey, we took this kid. Is there anybody, Megan's going to take her for the weekend, but is there anybody that can volunteer placement now before we have to start calling on Monday morning? So they check with us, and if all of us are full or nobody can take it, and it has to be the right fit for your family. Like, I can't take a teenager in my house. I'm not going to take a teenager right now. Nothing against teenagers, but I have enough. I don't think it's, I have enough. I don't think it's safe to bring a teenage boy into my house with a teenage daughter. I don't think it's safe to bring a teenage girl that's been exposed to who knows what into the house with my boys. It sets my boys up. I have to watch out for my household first. So then they call the local agencies is what happens. So they call in, the Baptist homes, or I can't think of all the names of the other ones. There's 2 other ones in Charlotte we use a lot. And so they call them, and then their social workers start calling their families. And that's how the kids get placed. So they might not end up, Cabarrus County kids might not end up in Cabarrus County. So fortunately, for this little girl, she did end up in Cabarrus County. Now, she went to school, I can't remember, I want to say it was Weddington or Pitts or somewhere over there, and she ended up in Mount Pleasant. But fortunately for her, this foster mama works for the county at the county office, and so she's willing to drive there every morning and so this child doesn't have to be disrupted to schools again. But if not, they would have packed her up and moved her to Mount Pleasant Elementary on Monday morning because we also don't have transportation people. We don't have enough people to transport our kids to where they need to be. But we can have people to do respite. Like, they used to be a little bit more, like if my parents wanted to keep my foster kids for the weekend, they had to have a background check and all this. Well, there's a law now that's called the Prudent Parent Law that says, if I know you well enough to leave my own birth child with you, I trust you, then I can make that decision for my foster child too. It's a kind of an understanding that if you're going to leave a child somewhere that's not a licensed home, that you let the social worker know. But we do have a little bit more then. So if you as a group are willing to say, like, we'd be glad to help keep a kid when daycare's closed or something, but we don't want to get licensed, that could be worked out. Like, we could say by the Prudent Parent Law, like, we trust these people, we know these people. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Now, I know this is way in the future kind of, but for Christmas presents, I know that you can sign up on the foster care site and take presents, and I did that year before last, but one of the groups I'm in here this year wanted to adopt a family and take presents to that family, and I called social services and got I talked like, you talk to her, and finally I left a message, and nobody ever called me back. Is that a possibility? Because
Absolutely.
we've also done Samaritan's Purse, but we go to the dollar store and we buy crap.
Right, right.
Excuse my French.
Right.
You know?
And you want to see it benefit a family.
Yeah, and we would rather
I
take
get
that money, because it was several $100s, I
Right.
think, to give to a local family.
And I would say, yes, you can, and that's the problem. And DSS is like everywhere else in the world. DSS is understaffed. But DSS was understaffed before COVID. And DSS is going to continue to be. And so this happens when anybody tries to do anything. They're like, well, I called this person, I called this person, I called this person. So here's what I'm going to do. If y'all want my cell phone number, I'm going to give it to you. I would give you my cell phone number. You can call or text me when you get ready to do something and say, who can I call? And I would give you the name of a specific person and say, like, for instance, Stephanie Buchanan is our licensing worker currently. She's fabulous. Like, we have been through the ringer with workers. I love Stephanie. When I ask her to do something, if I can't find, she's not even my kid's social worker, but if I can't find my kid's social worker and I've got a problem, our baby has significant medical needs, and I need somebody to tell me quickly, like, I do or do not have to do this, I can't cancel an appointment because I'm the foster mom. I don't get to make decisions. So, like, but she's sick and doesn't need to go to PT or whatever, I have to get permission from somebody. If I can't get her, I can call Stephanie, and Stephanie will walk down the hall and find the person for me. So yes, I will give you my cell phone number if you are, okay? Okay.
A couple of questions for you. I know that for homeless children, the state is required to make sure those children get to the school that they're, that doesn't
Well,
happen with foster kids?
It does, if Cabarrus County Schools had enough transportation.
Okay.
Right now, they were told for this particular child, because I said, why are they not McKinney-Vento in this kid? Because
Right.
McKinney-Vento is a program that provides homeless kids a way to school and to stay in their home school. She said, we don't have enough drivers in the county right now. I mean, we're down like 80-some bus drivers. So, you know, that's a whole nother need. So
Okay.
I think they could have pushed and pushed, but
Right, because it is a law.
it is a law. Yeah, they could have pushed, but what they will try to do to make it easier on everybody is get the foster family to
Sure.
agree. And usually it's easier on the foster family to have all your kids in the same school and everything, but it's not fair in March to move a kid that's going to be finishing a school year in 2 years.
The second question I had for you, you mentioned two things. You talked about Parents' Night Out. Would there be requirements that would be on the church if we were having Parents' Nights Out and foster kids were participating in that? Is there licensing? Is there
You wouldn't need
inspections? Is there?
You wouldn't need to be licensed or anything like that. I would be glad to give you the name of a person who does it at Providence Church in Harrisburg, and you could talk, because I do know she makes people sign waivers. She has people sign waivers, and she has like certain behavioral guidelines that she kind of sets up. They do safe sanctuaries there, so if you have background checks or whatever on your people here, then that's good enough. You wouldn't have to go through DSS for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last question. With your foster child, if you decided to go to South Carolina, can you
I have to
take?
get permission.
You have to get permission to go
Everywhere.
across state lines.
I
That's
have to
what
get permission to go across state line. I was able to get a blanket permission last year because one of my boys plays tournament basketball, and North Carolina was closed last year, so we went to South Carolina twice a week for practice. And so I was like, I don't need it. Can I get a blanket permission so I don't have to get a court order twice a week to drive my kid to basketball practice? So they were able to get a judge to sign, giving me permission to go to North and South Carolina without notifying them. So,
Okay.
but yeah, typically, anytime we cross state line, anytime you're going to be gone longer than 36 hours, you need permission.
And that permission has to come from the judge,
It has to come from a judge.
not from DSS.
Right. So, well, the judge, the legal team likes now if they can work it out between the parents. So if the biological parent says, yeah, that's fine, they can take him to Myrtle Beach, that's fine, then they get the parent to sign it now without having to get a court order. But some parents aren't able to be reached. Some parents don't want their kid going anywhere just to spite you, you know, like, so then the judge will make that decision. And I've honestly I've never been told no, but you have to, well, that's not true. During COVID, they were really, when COVID first started, they were really, really, you know, not wanting kids to go anywhere. And people canceled vacations because they didn't feel right going and leaving their foster kid at home that they'd had for a year, you know, like that wasn't fair. So they canceled vacations. It was a really hard time.
Typically, how long does it take you to get that kind of permission?
They like for you to give them a 30-day notice, and it.
Sorry.
So sometimes that doesn't happen. And I will say that one time after we had our child for like 3.5 years, We drove to Myrtle Beach one night, and as soon as we crossed the state line, I went, oh my God, I didn't tell anybody we were coming here. But so we just prayed we didn't have to go to the ER. So, but yeah, they like to have a 30-day notice. That's sometimes, so if you got your summer vacation planned, you can do that. But if something comes up and you need to go out of town, it gets tricky.
You've been doing this for a number of years, or I wouldn't ask this question. The number of available families seems to float around 40. Mm-hmm. Do you have any idea why it doesn't get higher than that?
I think it's true burnout. A lot of people get licensed to be a foster family, and then they adopt a kid or two or three, and they're full. They're done. I mean, honestly, if we adopt this baby, we're probably going to be done because we can't take on. I'm not going to take a child that I would have to say no to in a year after I'd had them for a year and say, no, I can't keep you here. I think it's burnout with not being supported. Just the turnover at DSS, it can wear you down. I mean, on court days are so hard. I think I know people that have left and went to other agencies because they thought it would be better there. You're still dealing with people, So I think, and I tell friends that say that to me, because there's been times where we thought, we're done with this. We're done with DSS. We're going to find a private agency. I bet you get better support there. But the truth is, we were called to love the kids and to take care of kids. We were not called to deal with these people. We just have to pray our way through that. That's just the honest truth. I've just learned to, I use upper management a lot. I email a lot of people. I copy emails on anything I put in, and I've learned to make a paper trail. So anything I need to send to DSS, I also include the supervisor and the supervisor's supervisor in my email because I need things done.
So the rough translation of that is the rules of the system designed to help the child do not work in that direction at all.
That is correct, and a lot of people get burnt out on it. And if a child's goal is reunification, and I'll just use our own child for an example. We got him when he was 2. His adoption didn't go through until he was 6 and a half. So 4.5 years we had this child before, and his goal was reunification with his mama. We got him in November. The following Christmas, not that Christmas, the following Christmas, he was on track to go home with this woman. We had built a relationship with her. We were willing to support her. We did all the things. He's never known his birth dad. He's actually never even asked. I don't think he's old enough to put all that together that he needed a birth dad. So my husband has been his daddy his whole life. And his biological mom even said, yes, I want to keep a relationship because he's not going to have a man in his life. He needs Derek, And so we had done all the things, and then she completely just spiraled and things fell apart. And it was just one thing after another. But to make a very, very long story short, we ended up having to go to appeals court. And so it sat stale in Raleigh for 13 months. 13 months is a long time not knowing if this kid you've had for 4 years is going to be yours or not. It was a very, very, and people just get burned out from that. I mean, it was hard on our whole family. So I think people get burnt out and they just can't deal with the system anymore, so they walk away.
Do we have a chat question? Oh, I'll come back to you, Chuck.
Sarah, when it comes to supporting those single mothers that you mentioned, if an individual did want to provide some support, is there a single point of contact who can help arrange that? How would that work?
Like I said, I'll be glad to give you all my cell phone number. You can text me and I can put you in touch with a particular single mom and just say, hey, just for instance, I know there's one that lives in these apartments right here, okay? She's a single mama. She's got guardianship of two teenagers, and she has a baby. And sometimes she's one that a lot of times needs daycare help. But I'm sure she has lots of other needs that I don't know about. She has no family around here. So I'll be glad to give you my cell number. You can contact me, and I can either send you to somebody else or send you directly to that parent. We have 2 foster mamas that kind of run our group. We're there's no real group, but that kind of are good contact people.
So you had this child who is now yours for 4.5 years, so there was that limbo. So what is the average length in foster care?
I don't know of an average length.
Give me a range.
I mean, probably at least 2 years, at least 2 years. They teach us that a child won't be in custody for longer than, 12 to 18 months before permanency happens. I don't know anybody that's happened for 12 or 18 months. We're going on 2 years with our baby, and I'm having to push for there to be an end in sight.
So are you all guardian ad litem?
No, so that's a whole nother program, guardian ad litem. My sister is a guardian ad litem. Guardian ad litems get to speak in court. Foster parents do now. It's a new law. I haven't been invited yet, but I'm waiting. But it's a new law that foster parents do get to speak in court. But until recent, the guardian ad litem represented the child in court. Guardian ad litem is a fantastic program. It's great for people that have extra time, retired folks. My sister has been a guardian ad litem for 3 or 4 years. She currently has 2 families she represents. You need to visit that family once a month, get to know the kid, but then she reports to the guardian ad litem attorney who gets to speak in court. And so her say is way more than my say. We are often called placement providers, and that's how they look at us, as just a home. But we're the one doing day in, day out. I will say our baby has significant needs, like I said. We applied for CAP-C services for her through Medicaid and were denied. CAP-C, it's a whole nother program, but it's just to get help for a lot of equipment and things she's going to need, respite care provider. She's going to be significantly disabled. She is. So we were denied, but I couldn't file the appeal because I'm not the guardian. I couldn't do anything. But when it came to the court day, guess who the judge called? Because they couldn't answer the questions. So the judge had to call me because they don't know how many, the rate of her feeding pump. They don't know how often she does this and that, even though I've told them 100 times. So the judge had to call me. So it's a tricky situation there. We did. We made it through the first step. And you know what ended up? This is crazy. The fact that she's on a feeding tube, she has epilepsy, she has all these issues. But she needed to meet one more criteria. And the fact that I said she couldn't have a bowel movement without us initiating it, did it. I was like, who knew?
I'm 76. How can I help? I mean, can I even be vetted to, like, for instance, I love teenagers. So how could I help in the foster care system? Like you mentioned, helping the single mom. Well, I can't just pick up the phone and say, hey, I want to help you. Don't I need to be vetted?
Well, you could become that person's grandparent, kind of, and help. Like, we could set you up with somebody who has teenagers, and maybe you take them to a movie every now and then. Maybe you drop dinner off. Maybe you just send a card in the mail, things like that. There are lots of ways you can still help.
Is there an age cutoff, though, if you want to become a foster parent?
There is. Yeah. I want to say it's, I don't remember, but there is an age. You have to be this old. You don't have to be very old. I think it's 21 or 22. Like, it's really young. I know, I have a 21-year-old. He can't even load the dishwasher. I can't imagine him parenting someone's child, but there is an age cutoff to get licensed, but there are still lots of ways you can help.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Oh, well, here we go. Debbie.
You mentioned a couple of times that a particular child's goal is reunification. I'm curious, some are not on that track, and who decides?
Well, there's a lot of things that decide, but depending on why the child was removed, there may not, I think everybody's goal to start with is reunification, but it might not last very long. If there's significant abuse that's very easy to see, and there's not going to have to be a big investigation if it's very evident. But you still have to go through the process. They have to terminate parent rights unless the parent were to relinquish. Some parents see, like, I don't want all my business aired out in front of everybody, so I'm just going to go ahead and relinquish my rights and be done with it. in our case, our baby's mama committed suicide in September. So that changed a lot of things for us and for her. So, you know, you just never know. A lot of these parents are incarcerated, you know, and they still get to work a plan, and depending on, I mean, that's a very tricky one. But yeah, it really, and after the goal's not reunification, they're going to try to find somebody, like a family member or something. That's what almost happened to us. Our son, at the 11th hour, these two aunts that had been not in the picture ever showed up at court from Maryland wanting to adopt him. And actually, halfway through, it was a closed court hearing because it was our second TPR. TPR is termination of parental rights. We had to go through that twice because we had the appeal and all this. It was a big mess. But anyways, halfway through that day when we had the lunch break, one of the women came over to me and apologized for coming. She said this was not, I guess his birth mama had sold it to them as, can you please come take my child? He's in foster care and he's mistreated and nobody cares about him, blah, 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 blah. And once she had heard our testimony and whatnot, because they put us both on the stand and they asked them a set of questions, you know, like, what's his favorite sport? What's his favorite color? What does he like to eat at night? Well, they had no idea because they'd never met him. And then they put me on the stand. And of course, I could answer all those questions. So they ended up apologizing, but that could have gone a different way.
One last question.
So I'm doing math, and
I'm not good at that.
Cabarrus County grew by 30% in the 90s. It grew by 30% in the aughts, and it grew by 30% in the teens. And you said that the number of families that since you've been in, have roughly stayed the same. So we're not only not able to serve, but it's getting worse.
Yeah, that's how I feel, yes. And I do think that in the last 2 years, maybe people that were interested couldn't get licensed because of COVID. So, because there's a lot of things, but like nobody at DSS was licensed to teach the class online. Like that was a whole different licensure or something, I don't know. So now, and then we had somebody retire that was the only one that taught it. And, you know, there was a lot of issues with getting licensed through the county. So now, not only can you take the classes online, but I think they are back in person now. But Stephanie is getting a different certification where she could do a one-on-one with a family. Like you wouldn't have to wait until the twice-a-year time to get licensed. And that's just a staffing issue on their end too. But then you say you have 7 or 8 families come through your licensing class where you graduate, you get your little certificate, but guess what? Then they have to come do home visits. They have to do home inspection. Everybody in your house has to have, you know, a physical and a TB test or whatever. I can't remember everything. We all have to be fingerprinted over 18. So then there's all this other process. So then you've got one person at DSS trying to get all these family licensed and still trying to maintain the 30 families we still have. There are 2 people that do that job. One of them is currently deployed. So one is doing that whole job.
All right. We are just about out of time. Thank you, Sarah,
Thank you.
and your husband, Derek,
Yeah.
and your family.
Yeah, thank you
Appreciate
for having
you.
me. Thank you for your concern. And if you want my cell phone number, I'll give it out right now. Sure. If you guys are ready, and you can call or text me. So it's 980-521-2633. And 980-521-2633. So you can call or text me and say, hey, I saw you speak here, whatever, and I want to help some way. Let me know what you want, and I can try to put you in the right direction. Okay?